childhood, William Tell, Genghis Khan, Legos, what do all these real and fake people have in common? Well, they all at one point used bows. I've recently started shooting archery. I've been doing it for about 2 months, and I've learned a lot from talking to the professionals on the range, and I've used this speech as an opportunity for myself to learn more about archery. And I would like to share with you some of the stuff I've learned. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of bows. I'm going to talk about the 3 major types of bows used today, and I'm going to bust some of the myths Hollywood has made about archery. Bows were one of the earliest weapons used. They had the first stone arrowheads were found in Africa, and they date from around 25,000 BC to 18,000 BC. The first bows didn't start appearing until in Denmark, and they're dated from about 9,000 BC to 6,000 BC, and these were made out of wood from either yew or elm trees. In 2800 BC, the first composite bow started to appear. Historians think the idea originates from Asia, but Egyptians were the one who took this idea and developed it further. They made theirs out of wood, tipped with animal horns, and they were held together with sinew and fat. Around 1500 BC, the first crossbow is mentioned in China, and from around that point to about 1588 AD, bows were used majorly in warfare. Some of the great people from history that used archers to great effect were Pharaoh Ramses II in 1288 BC, the Battle for Kadesh. 35 years ago, in 1974, people found the first emperor of China's terracotta statue army, and these consisted of soldiers, archers, and cavalry. These dated from 221 BC. Attila the Hun used archers in her army. In 400 AD, William of Normandy defeated King Harold of England in 1066 AD. In 1307, William Tell had to shoot an arrow off his son's head because he refused to shoot a hat off of a pole, which signified imperial authority. Genghis Khan used archers to deadly effect to create fear throughout his empire. And in 1588, 10,000 English soldiers defeated the Spanish Armada, and this basically, at this point, signified the end of bows being used in warfare, because they used muskets, first time that they were used in a major battle. After this, bows started to decline in warfare, and for a while they disappeared from the map completely until in about 1673, when England held its first archery tournament, and archery then started to become more of a sport than warfare. Basically, this tournament in England would be the only tournament held for archery until 1879, when the National Archery Association held its first tournament in Chicago. And then archery was introduced into the Olympics in 1900. More and more different types of competitions and tournaments started to take place, and in 1969, Hollis Fuller Allen invented the first compound bow, which is the most modern bow to date to be invented. And with this, I'd like to explain the differences between the 3 major types of bows used today. There's 3 major types. There's the recurve, there's the traditional, or more commonly known as longbow, and then there's the compound bow. The freedictionary.com states that a recurve bow is defined as a bow that has tips that are curved away from the archer and whose strings rest on the limbs of the bows. As you can see right here, this is an unstrung bow right here, and the tips curve away from the archer. This is strung up. It's held from this side, and the archer stands on this side, and the string comes around and it rests on the limbs. That's a recurve bow. A long bow is one that is tall. The limbs are not significantly thick, and it has very little recurve in it. As you can see, the limbs are straight and long. There's no recurve in it at all. There's no bend, and it's tall, and the limbs are really skinny. A compound bow is a modern bow that uses a liveried system of cables and cams and pulleys to draw the limbs back. There's more science behind it, and it uses pulleys, and there's more string involved. It's more of an advanced bow. And then, so next time you're watching a movie, you'll be able to identify what kind of bow they're shooting from, what kind of bow they're shooting. And now I'd like to talk about some of the Hollywood myths about archery. There's been many movies that have some form of archery in it. A few of these movies have memorable moments that usually are well known. One moment is when Robin Hood, he shoots an arrow and splits it directly in half. Most people think this is impossible, but it's not. Here's a movie of a Korean tournament. He shoots, and as we'll see in a second, the arrow splits. The arrow exactly goes right through. So this is not an impossible shot to do. In another movie, Lord of the Rings, Legolas, he uses a bow and he fires arrow after arrow at his enemies, and the arrow flies straight through the air and it hits its target. Most all movies I've seen, they show the arrow is like straight without any movement until it hits its target and it just stops. But in real life, the arrow actually is constantly moving as soon as it's released from its bow. The arrow is constantly in motion because the actual arrow is flexible and there's so much force that it's constantly moving the arrow. And here's one the arrow shows just as it's released. The arrow is flexible. And then if the arrow is too flexible, it will actually snap around the bow. And shatter. I hope you enjoyed this brief history of the bows, and next time you watch a movie, you can identify what type of bow is being used. And you can laugh to yourself when they show the arrow flying straight because you know how it flies.
All right, Fabian, what did you think?
I thought he did a good job in the introduction. It was, I'm going to talk about this and this, but I got the point across. And the Hollywood part played in pretty good, giving us something to relate with. And brief summary, I summed it up pretty good.
All right. Well, Jason, I thought you did a very nice job integrating the visuals. I want to start with that. There was, of course, as I looked at it, it appears like there were 3 or 4 images that you didn't show in that first section, and that might have perked it up a little bit because it did get to be a long list of historical events, and you needed something to kind of get that going. And maybe the visuals would have helped there, or maybe just talking about a particular story or two on one of those points would have been a good way to go. I did like in the last section where you integrated the video clips effectively into the presentation to illustrate the point that you're talking about. You're not lingering over it too much time. You explain it. You talk while it's going on. I thought that worked out really well. The setup of the contents was really strong. You gave a personal justification for us to pay attention to this, which is good. I do think that you needed to give us some more source citations on the material, especially all that historical data. And in the descriptions of the different kinds of bows, I know that it probably is common sense to you, but the definitions, I'm sure, well, you did give us the free dictionary definition. That was the one source citation that I thought was pretty clear. we're going to work more on presentation kinds of things. People kind of need to break themselves of looking at the script and focusing so much on the content, and don't forget that the audience is there, and I think that you could improve your speech a lot by making that kind of connection. All right, thank you very much.